What that tells me, again, is this is a multi-year bull market. The other thing I would call out, you mentioned $70 trillion. I think those people are eventually going to have 5% of their portfolios in crypto. That's $3.5 trillion. That's more than the total market cap today. Think about that much money trying to flood into this space, right? I think that's what you're going to see.
The Bitcoin price today, as well as the broader crypto market, remain in downwards consolidation as the Donald Trump tariffs and uncertainty of a longer global trade war suck liquidity out of everything. Yet the mainstream media won't share this with you. I will. Like the video. That while the world is screaming, be fearful, publicly traded companies and whales continue to accumulate. And they have not stopped buying up the supply mind since 2024. This is what's happening now in 2025.
Even though the spigots are only open a little bit, so far this year, ETFs have bought about 40,000 Bitcoin. Corporations have bought about 50,000 Bitcoin. The Bitcoin network has produced about 18,000 Bitcoin. So even though we're only open this much, it's 90,000 Bitcoin of demand against 18,000 Bitcoin of supply. When you think about that $70 trillion finally getting their taps on, I think people underestimate the scale of the impact.
So just in the last week, and to put this into perspective, 18 publicly traded companies increased their HODL stash last week, over 3,177 Bitcoin bought. The 70 publicly traded companies bought 100% of the newly mined Bitcoin. Also, this is global. The first Brazilian publicly traded company joined the list, and the amount of Bitcoin in their treasuries has only increased. So it should be very clear that Bitcoin is not dipping because it's suddenly a fundamentally bad investment. Actually, it's so much better than where we were just 1 year ago. But the reason Bitcoin is dipping, and why actually all markets are getting liquidity sucked out of it, is because of uncertainty of a global trade war. You see, if we had good news, markets could price that in. Bad news, again, not as ideal, but markets could price that in. Uncertainty, they don't know how to react. Big money just sort of sits on the sidelines. And we have about 18 more days on April 2nd when global reciprocal tariffs go into place for the US. This is on top of the 25%, 25%, and 10% on Mexico, Canada, and China. And until April 2nd passes and we get more clarity, the big money is just waiting on the sidelines.
If he continues with this, and we have April 2nd coming up, and everyone in the hedge fund world is waiting for that, which means the opposite of de-risking is, are people going to take risk? No one's taking risk ahead of April 2nd at this point because we have no clarity on what it's going to mean. And that puts us in a very precarious position if something starts to happen. And we do have vulnerabilities on economic data, earnings, things along those lines, because the earnings period will start just after April 2nd.
So I think about this in two ways. Number one, let's just assume worst case for market scenario. Worst case would be that these tariffs aren't just a negotiating tactic, meaning, oh, Trump's not just using this to get a better deal with other countries. He means this. This is the new normal. And these reciprocal tariffs and 25% tariffs and 10% tariffs, they're staying for the rest of the year, minimum rest of the year. If that were to happen, I think we see a crash in the days to weeks after. We've talked about this line before. Bitcoin could easily sink back down to this very strong support, relatively speaking, of the low $70,000 Bitcoin range. And the reason I say crash is because there's nothing bullish about slowing the global economy down significantly. Like, that's a huge, significant shift down. Might be very good in 2 years, might be great for America in 2 to 3 years, but a slowdown of this significance short term is pain. And in that worst case scenario, if the worst should happen, the next viable date to look out for as a Bitcoin holder is early May, I think May 6th and 7th, because that's the next Federal Reserve meeting. Now, really, we have a Fed meeting in a few short days, March 18th and 19th. Of course, this is before April 2nd. Ideally, Jerome Powell would be a little proactive on this. See, oh, economic slowing, I can offer some relief. Let's start bringing the interest rates down. That's ideal. But whether he does, whether he doesn't, next big date is May 6th, 7th. While tariffs have the power to slow markets, Fed interest rate cuts have the ability to stimulate the economy. Will they see the same things and sort of get in line and on the same page with each other? A lot of unknown means money sitting on the sidelines until after April 2nd, and really until after maybe the Fed meeting May 6th, 7th. Now that would be worst case. And as I share with you the best case, keep in mind the innovation happening with altcoins. Telegram's ton surges 20% as Telegram founder Pavel Durov recovers his passport from French authorities. He is essentially able to travel again, and the move restores Durov's ability to travel freely and marks the end of a situation that had drawn concerns from privacy and free speech advocates. And while this has nothing directly to do with Ton Coin, because he is the founder of the platform that has hundreds of millions of daily users that uses the Ton blockchain, this was seen, narrative-wise, as a big win and growth milestone for Algorand. There are over 5,800 mainnet nodes securing the Algorand network, the top 10 countries by node count, the United States #1 running nodes for Algorand, also Pakistan, Germany, Canada, France, Singapore, Netherlands, etc. Decentralization is increasing on Algorand. Some of you were asking me about Bitget Seed, which we did mention the other day, in that we mentioned exchange partner Bitget and Bitget Seed, which is aiming to be the one-stop hub for the next 100x altcoins. And just understand, this could be one of many great tools in your arsenal just to discover newer altcoins. Moving forward, anywhere from 0 to 5 new projects/tokens will be announced daily, depending on market conditions, meaning some days may not have any new tokens. And each token will receive a score based on 5 key dimensions, meaning trading activity, contract security, which is big, token distribution, meaning decentralization, liquidity, and growth potential. The Bitget score is updated in real time to reflect each project's latest performance. In most cases, this is even before a coin has been added to Bitget. They'll highlight some of these projects. Just something to keep on the radar, link down below. And big news for Cardano. NASA's blockchain moves forward with Cardano. Cardano Foundation CEO explains.
We're actually working with the National Space Agency, so NASA, around some of these track and trace, not just from physical items like hoodies, but also about data and data provenance. One of the unique things you can do on Cardano, which you cannot do on any other blockchains, to my knowledge, of the big size, right, is something called Parisia Merkle trees. So we actually took the whole Bitcoin protocol and put it on Cardano. So every single Bitcoin transaction there ever was and there ever will be is automatically recorded on Cardano. This is really hard to do because, normally you take a data dump, right, and you keep to maintain it, right? But this idea that you have a flexible end date is very interesting. And what we're doing then is we're exploring everything from satellite data, which keeps updating with billions of time, right? Because then it becomes a provenance layer of data. And when you have a provenance layer of data, you have quality for the AI to train on, right? And you have reinsurance, and you have all those things which we've been dreaming about in blockchain for so long, right?
So as blockchain goes to space, and NASA's really using blockchain to track the supply chain, provide authenticity and transparency as they make their journeys, it's interesting which blockchains they're working with. And many of you were asking me about Solana. Austin, can I have an update? Austin, why is this happening? Well, breaking. Solana has more 24-hour volume than Ethereum and Base combined. Also, take a look at the number of traders and transactions. And essentially, Solana is dominating. They have 18 million compared to Ethereum's just 168,000 total transactions. This is just in the last 24 hours. And if you're asking why, some people are attributing it to this. Solana community votes no to proposal SIMD 228, dynamic inflation model. This proposal aimed to adjust inflation based on staking rates, potentially making the inflation rate inversely related to staking participation. So I think the more staking, the less rewards, or the less staking, the more rewards, inverse correlation. The community voted no and opted to keep the fixed inflation model for Solana tokens. To me, while yes, this is big news, it does not, to me, really signify, oh, this is why we're getting so much more volume, so many more transactions in just the last 24 hours. With this one, we may have to wait and see what's really going on behind the scenes. To me, we'll probably learn in 2 weeks or 3 weeks what really happened this day. And understanding now that certain altcoin projects are still implementing, no matter what macro does, no matter what the Bitcoin price does, fundamentals are improving. And that brings us to potential best case scenario for the Trump tariffs, global trade war, and Bitcoin. We talked about worst case, my worst case at the beginning of the video. Best case to me is, again, there's still a lot of unknown until April 2nd on whether these Trump tariffs are the new normal or just a negotiating technique to get a better deal for America. Best case to me, and again, checking comments now to see if you agree with this, but best case to me is the negotiation works. A lot of these countries that have just got imposed reciprocal tariffs say to the US, hey, why give each other 25% tariffs each? Let's both bring those down to zero, or both bring those down equally. That would essentially be a game of chicken, but it would be a better outlook for the rest of the year that, wow, okay, global trade is not slowing. This is just a speed bump, and Trump essentially still sees the stock market and the crypto market as a scorecard for his presidency. This is an ongoing story. The second I get new information, I will make a video. I will keep you updated. And we are about less than 6,000 subscribers away from the coveted 1.6 million subscribers on YouTube. So if you've been a watcher for a long time, join the army. It's completely free, it costs you nothing, and you can get this information first and stay up to date on crypto. Like always, see you tomorrow.